live from Nigeria's capital, Abuja. The market rose by about 105 billion naira. And there's some other things that we can do to help small businesses in Nigeria.
There is. Like one of the things we found out was most of our businessmen do not have the capacity to do a business plan. We have very good policies, but be consistent with those policies.
Whether it's a solo business or it's a big brand, it's the same thing. You might not necessarily have to attend a business school, but you need knowledge to run a business.
The federal government cannot do it alone, and then the state government cannot do it alone, so there has to be a synergy. And the synergy must be a very productive one.
All right, welcome back. In case you're just joining us, it's the Money Show reaching you from Nigeria's capital, Abuja. Joining me right now is my guest, Dr. Sam Amadi, is the chairman of the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission. Welcome to the program, and thank you for joining me on the show today.
Thank you, Nassim.
We're looking at electricity. You know, I just said I needed to, take a break from this ministerial screening and all of that, you know, because it seems to be what's actually everywhere right now.
Absolutely.
You know, but of course other businesses actually going on, or businesses are actually going on, and we need to look at other sectors. And power actually is very key, you know, because they said that we actually need significant power improvement or electricity power improvement in the nation to be able to shock, you know, growth as it were, and perhaps development. So let me get started by the very tricky one, which is about tariffs,
Okay.
isn't it? Tell me where we are right now in terms of the pricing system. It was announced some weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken or so, that tariffs would increase this month.
Well, I think what we like to say is that tariff is being reviewed. I mean, of course, people expect that review will be an increase going by where we are today in the pricing curve. Essentially, we are not yet at the optimum price, basically, but essentially, we've done, first and foremost, the regulator, we've done a shift, and the shift is to say NEC is no longer the one doing tariff in that nitty-gritty sense of building the building blocks. So tariffs are essentially a operator's responsibility because they know their cost of doing business.
At what point did NEC shift from that point?
That was that started December when we signed the new tariff regulation. Now, what that says is the shift is simply to say we share the job now. You go and talk to your customers first and show the numbers and show justification for increase. That creates two things. One, it gives the discos more flexibility to know how to structure their recovery. In many discos, for example, take for example fixed charge. ECO says we take it off entirely because they look at their customer size, they look at their corporate members.
ECO has a big customer
so they can
base.
say, you know what, we can recover all our money through energy charge. So fixed charge, no. Ikeja says we can do 50%. So what we've done is to allow the discos some degree of flexibility in their pricing.
Why did you come at that flexibility? At what point did you think, oh, we need to bring flexibility into this matter? Because I know that the issue of cost-reflective tariffs have been there for a very long time. And you will announce, you go back, you announce, you go back, you say you want to review, you go back. So
no, first and foremost, we've not changed from the requirement of cost-reflective tariff. What have changed the methodology? In the past, because the old discourse owned by government didn't have the skills and capability to do the pricing. We took the responsibility, so we do the pricing. Now the new owners come, they say, well, this price is not correct, you didn't discover this cost. So what we've done is that the regulations say, and that's what we've done all over the world, distribution company operator, if you want a tariff change, you build your case, come to a regulator. But before you come to a regulator, go to the customers. So what we've done is we've created a greater degree of accountability.
So that means that NEC was even delving into what it was not supposed to do initially, NEC, just saying like the NCC now, which is the regulator of telecoms, to be able to fix how much the telecom companies charge. That's what you're saying?
Yeah, the law says that NEC should approve the tariff.
Yes,
now,
you should approve.
In approving the tariff, the discourse under government will come to us and say, we can't create the tariff. So they give us numbers. We build it for them. Now, these guys are in the room and they have the skills to build a number. So the numbers are there, they build a number. The critical issue here is that every of the tariff are being approved, NEC will make sure that the cost elements are proper costs. Okay, let me give you an example now. talk about collection loss. The discourse says in this industry, the collection loss is 40%. That means 40% of the people will not pay their bill, whether because illegal connection, because they are poor, or whatever reason. We now say, okay, fine, but we'll take out government debts, meaning departments like NEC, Ministry of Power, we should pay. So they say, okay, they give us a number, we take that. So that means we're reducing the tariff, because what we're telling them is, you can collect those ones. Government can pay, because it's known. Ministry of Power, Ministry of Telecom, go and collect it. We'll help you to collect it, but we'll not pass it to the consumer. So tariff making is a process of prudence review. You bring your cost. I look at the cost. I say, this cost is not prudent. This is not efficient. This is not be passed to. So what has gone now? They have done the first consultation where they provided justification to the customer. They have gone the second one where they show the numbers to them. Now they are with us reviewing those numbers. And so when we review the numbers, and we think three things are possible here first. First, the tariff revenue requirement. How much do you need to distribute X amount of power? We established that you need 20 billion. The second question is tariff design. How do you want to recover that 20 billion? You look at, I have 14 customer classes. Residential 1, very poor. Residential 2, 3, those who are using big houses and all that, up to 4. You have commercial, 1, 2, 3. You have industrial. So each of those customer classes, the DISCO, who serve them, we allocate burden on them based on the cost of serving them. So end of the day, they give us a design. So okay, fine. This average tariff of 26 naira, we want to share it in this form, because that form is fair to consumers, the poor ones, those in Lube, those who are industrialists pay different tariffs. So the job of a regulator is twofold on tariff. One is that we establish that the revenue we want to recover are prudent revenues, no escalated costs. Two, we make sure that the way we design your tariff is fair and reasonable. That means fair means it allows you to recover your costs. Reasonable means that the burden affordability on the customer is affordable. So our work, therefore, is after the review, we sit with them and say, look, this is not. For example, initial review, we discovered some of these are giving 8% deduction on fixed charge, like Benin. We say, no, that's too low. Benin should give us, at least everybody should give us minimum of 30% reduction in fixed charge, because fixed charge has been the complaint of most customers. So ECO say we can do without fixed charge, we can recover through other means. Ikeja says 50. So we said benchmark, not less than 30. So that's what we do in regulation. We look at the numbers and we ask ourselves, what is fair on consumers? And then we get the feedback of consumers through those consultations.
So what you're saying right now is that the methodology is still ongoing, the construction of the methodology to
yes, by the end of this
best
month,
cost-reflective tariff.
Absolutely.
Is that it?
It's working. But at the end of this month, we are almost coming to, we have agreed on the major teams. It's now working the numbers. So we expect to get a new tariff by between the 30th of October to at least the 12th of November.
Okay, so that's the exclusive now on the show, between the 30th of October to the 12th of November.
We have to show the numbers to government, to the state government, for two reasons. One, they have macroeconomic implications, so they could be mitigating policy responses. For example, a place like Yola that is really troubled because of militancy, security, insurgency, we've shown initial numbers are not very comfortable considering the dislocation economic conditions. So we are thinking about policy responses. How do you respond to that? Are you going to either ask the DISCO to recover a longer period of time so we can reduce the tariff? Therefore, you have to provide some access to capital, financing for them. So our job is to think about first the commercial, then the socio-economic, and then find a way to have a tariff that allows for recovery, which is the one side of the lens, and allows for access to electricity, which is the other side. So walking that tightrope, that convergence has to happen. And where we draw the line is the art of regulation. The science is the formula, the framework. The art is calculating and calibrating in a manner that provides the best public value for the public, meaning access and sustenance through a commercial return to investors.
Okay, let me, I don't know how to put this because I'm just having two sides of the question in my head, but let me come to the issue of metering, because close to cost-reflective tariff is that of metering. What actually is happening? Because a lot of people have said they've actually paid for their prepaid meters, they cannot get it. What actually is the problem? We are not producing meters here.
And well, we do have some licensed manufacturers who are actually doing those what we call those CKD, complete
Yes,
knockdown.
complete knockdown.
But essentially, they're adding value.
They are not producing meters.
But essentially, well,
they are importing meters.
We call them meter manufacturers, but the argument is that they also...
Because I know there's an association of
meter manufacturers.
Meter manufacturers. Yeah. I'm yet to see any company manufacturing meters in Nigeria.
They do have, but they also buy the
completely
chips.
knocked down CKD.
Maybe.
Okay. Okay, where are we on metering? Why is there a problem? Why?
Well, the problem of metering is a legacy problem. What that means is simple. Before 2010, when I set up the Bamitan Turu panel that went around the country and established did the meter audit, we had a legacy gap of about 60% of all customers not metered. Now that's horrifying. That means that just 40 people have access to meter. Now, to close that gap, we brought the idea of we put 18 months metering in the first tariff. We did in 2012. The government discourse didn't do that. They say, well, no funds. Now the new owners have come. They have brought a metering plan. So first, it will take them time to close that. Even with the best, many of them are not doing very well. But even if they are doing very well, it will take some time to close a 40 to 45% metering gap in the industry. That's one. Two, therefore, the problem of estimation comes in. They have to estimate. We put out a methodology and they're not doing that faithfully. Now we came with CapMe, which allows customers to buy meter themselves, more like crowdsourcing. The discos are getting financed, reverse financing. The discos
from customers.
Yeah, the discos ought to finance and recover from customers.
Okay, so there will be meters, but the customers should buy from them.
Well, no, initially the normal finances, the discos borrow money and meter customers are collect from customers' tariff payment of bills. But now we reverse. So, okay, fine. Customers who can wait on the queue for that long, you can opt out by paying for the meter. Within 45 days, you get metered, and then within a 2 years program, they retire money through fixed charge. Good. But some discourse already. So today now...
But with what is going to happen with fixed charge now?
Now, the repayment will now be through energy charge.
Okay.
You have to, you must repay with interest at NIBO. Good. Now, we come and say, okay, but we discover that some discos didn't want to sign up because it means that perhaps perverse incentive, they're getting more from estimation. And so Ikeja did not announce that program. That's why we sanctioned them 131 million for 2 years of not complying with CapMe. They were not giving customers opportunity to buy their meter and were not running out meter. So the new order we're coming with this new tariff says 60 days, anybody who has paid for meter and not metered within 60 days will no longer be billed. The discos got that order and they accepted it. That means they have to make sure that they meter every CapMe customer. Because what that means that if you don't, it means that you will no longer collect money for services. What
actually is the problem by not giving or by not having adequate prepaid meters? Actually, let me play the devil's advocate now for the discos. What actually is the problem? Can you just take off your regulating cap?
Oh yeah, the problem is they're not just saying they won't meter. 3 problems. One is financing. The capex, that's the capital cost for metering, has to be either borrowed initially or got from the market. Now, when they came to this market, power generation was very low, which means total revenue will be lower. Plus, if you add also the fact of huge collection, people don't pay, revenue will be low. They have to pay for gas, pay for power, and pay for ancillary services, and then pay for staffing. That's one. 2, then they couldn't have access to capital easily. They overborrowed, and acquisition cost is high and short money, hot money basically. They couldn't have the depth of the capital market or even the other markets to support this electricity market is not that deep. So they need to have access to financing because the normal way you do metering all over the world is that you borrow money from the banks or from your institutions and then you meter and collect money. So the first problem is financing. The second problem is that even they are complaining that the quality and the quantity of meter available in Nigeria, some of these meters are being bypassed. So, for example, they have meters that are not sophisticated technologically. Customers bypass those meters, and so instead of meter being an enhancement of revenue for a disco, it becomes a loss of revenue because if they bypass that meter, then they're taking power free, and you have no way, and they're not being estimated this way, so you lose both ways. So some of them are reluctant to meter, except they get some kind of smart metering. And so they come to us and we say, fine, that's good. So for a disco, they can argue 3 things. First, we need to finance metering, capex. We're having problem with accessing capital. 2, logistics. We need time to import meters or certify meters. And 3, the gap is huge. If we are doing 100,000 meters a year, we might still not have closed down all the meters. But what we are saying is we want to see more improvement in metering. We don't believe at all that in 1 year or in 6 months, any disco, no matter how much they do it, we cover all the metering gap. But what we've said, 2 things we do is say, first, don't deepen that gap anymore. So no more new connection without a meter. If a customer builds a house and wants to be connected to, first get a meter or don't connect. So that we don't inflow, we don't increase the gap. Now, to abridge the gap, therefore, we now mandate faster rollout. So some discos have undertaken this new tariff will be different because it's going to have what we call service level agreement. So all those commitments on metering will be all mapped out monthly. So we monitor you. It said 20,000 meters every month. This month you are monitored. So any month you fail, you don't collect the tariffs anymore. So the tariff will be predicated on you are meeting those reasonable but aggressive enough, metering and reliability improvement commitment milestones. So that's what will give us that drive to more metering. But we should not be under any illusion, like some people think. Can't they meter everybody? They just simply can't meter everybody because there's a huge revenue requirement for that. And if we want to do it at the drop of a hat, we have to spike this tariff so high, and we
to be able to fill in the gap,
to get the revenue to drive, let's say 3 months, 4 months closure. So what we've done, for example, now we've said 3 months meter all government agencies because we don't want government to be owing money, huge money. So to stop it, they pay now, government will pay.
For its own electricity.
Absolutely. So meter the government agencies since you're afraid of getting...
How far has it
they have committed to a 3 months plan to meter the government so that when the government pays these debts, new debts don't
Because
accrue.
Government owes a lot.
Well, government owes it because some of the CEOs who are supposed on the budget, there's a budget for electricity, for power payment, you will not pay because it was under government ownership. Now it's under private ownership. So we have to be fair to the discourse as well. I say, look, they have huge, legacy debt to deal with, and they're dealing with customers who have not been used to paying bills.
But the question is that if we can get prepaid meters, does it actually solve the whole problem of metering and perhaps tariffs? Because at the end of the day, the Nigerians, some Nigerians will not even mind. Give me a prepaid meter. Let me pay, even if no matter the amount that you charge me, I would be in control of my electricity.
Yeah, prepaid meter takes off the controversy as long as it's not tampered and it's working. It removes the controversy of this is a big bill, this is what you consume. But two things, what we've also learned is that many Nigerians, people come and tell us that, how come we paid 4,000 naira last 2 months, now we're paying 6. But last 2 months, you didn't have power for 18 hours or 8 hours or 10 hours. This month, you're having, some people tell us, I now have 2 hours, light is back, or 1 minute or 30 minutes. The implication is this. Once you hit reliability, our electricity bills will go up. It's consumption based. So people forget it's consumption. So they are quarreling over, my bill has gone up. So there's need now to educate Nigerians that God help us under this new government. We increase, if we move to 6,500 or 6,000 megawatts, people will have almost unlimited power supply availability in their homes, most people. Those people will see their bill even without any tariff increase. Of course, if we move high in generation, price will likely drop. But no matter how much it drops, we've seen their 10-year tariff. It increases in the first two years. We see a decline in the next years, and we see
a sharp drop.
Sharp drop because duration increase is a disproportionate impact on pricing. Now, what that means, therefore, is that people, in spite of the drop in tariff itself, the bill, the volumetric impact will be huge because you are consuming more. If you used to consume 400 kilowatt hour per month at the price of, let's say, 12 naira per kilowatt hour, and now you are consuming 1,000 kilowatt hour per month at the price of 8 naira. The tariff is dropped, but the impact, the increase in your bill for that month is more than tripled because the volume has increased.
Okay, let me ask you, going back a bit, especially as you're reviewing the cost-reflective tariffs now, can we have an idea of what range it will be in terms of amount or pricing? Is there a range? Yeah,
there's a range. For what the discourse have submitted, we have a range. But the problem is that that range will come down because we are
still trying
subtracting
to
a few things. But let me say what I think will happen, you know, to prepare people. I think in few discos, they will see slight up to 30% increase or 20% increase for some customer classes. Some will, for example, some will maybe say like Eco is just 5% what they're proposing for some of the, you know, customer classes. So it will be disproportionate. It will be based on the cost profile of the various discos. One, it will be based on the customer numbers available. It will be based on the quantity of power they are expecting in those region, and of course, those who pay. So now, if citizens, if they reduce drastically, for example, the losses level that we're asking they have now, benchmark, if it drops drastically in the following years, the tariff will go down significantly. That's why we need to strengthen enforcement against all forms of energy theft. Commercial law should go down. All those instruments that regulate effectively punish people who steal power will help those who are paying to have lower tariff. But essentially, what we think will happen is that there will be some increase initially this year, but that will be more than compensated by the number of hours people have electricity and then what they don't pay
that
with their
brings
diesel.
Me to the question of
so the comparative cost of paying 18 naira per kilowatt for diesel,
for your light,
and
buying fuel,
and what you're going to pay by 30%, 20% increase is just minimal. So it is still economical for most people, if not everybody.
I've actually heard some people say that their electricity supply has improved. You know, but it's neither here nor there. It depends on actually where you are.
Sure.
But the question now is, how much do we generate now? You know, because the figure is always changing.
On average, I mean, generate now means able to take to the customers. It's about 4,600 megawatts. We have already reached 6,000 megawatts on the bar. That's power available. But because, you see, that's what happened. Initially, we have been doing regulations thinking about how do we move to 6,000. Now we've realized that really the real constraint is actually our capacity, domestic capacity, to get this power.
Energy.
So the disco level, and that's where revenue requirement is important. The discos need to, first we address the commercial issue. There was a problem of imbalanced trading. So, oh, this is why we're rejecting power, is because we are paying penalty for taking more. We abolished that. We were very smart and solved that. But we thought, wow, that's over. But now we discover that's a technical limitation of the grid. And that means that you need to invest in strengthening the grid, you need to invest in revamping the grid and solving problems. Of course, we are now using regulation to deal with vegetation control, line management, so that there's quicker response. But ultimately, we need to invest to expand the capacity of the distribution companies to receive more power.
Has the problem of gas, the challenge of gas supply been addressed?
Short term, yes, because short term today, gas can give us what we need. But in the long term, that problem needs to be addressed, because very soon, if we move fast on regulation, we'll be able to address the disco constraint through investment in network. Then we discover that we need to take in more power. Therefore, so we're doing 3 things at a time. We are expanding the long-term prospect by ensuring that we have the right pricing for molecular gas. By the way, we'll talk about right pricing for electricity. It means that we are carrying over the increase in gas supply, in gas price, and infrastructure
pricing for gas
back to the customer. So we've given a commercial pricing for gas to incentivize the downstream gas, so that gas will come up the more volumes, more infrastructure. 2, we are also helping the generators to be able to recover lost capacity, because as they get more revenue, they rebuild their turbines, so that their profit comes from operating at their highest level, peak time, so that if you have a 500 megawatts plant, you are doing 200 megawatts, because their turbines are down. If you rebuild those turbines, you have 400 and you make more money. That helps the customer. So short term, gas is solved. Long term, we are still solving it by ensuring that we create a commercially viable market for willing buyer, willing seller, and ensure that the infrastructure to continuously grow more molecules and transport them to the power sector.
At what point or how much megawatts do we need to achieve this steady power supply?
Well,
you know, but it's not a dumb question.
Yeah,
because
it's not.
Is it a dumb question?
No, I don't
it's
think
not.
So.
You know, because you can say, oh, at 40,000, oh, everyone will have light or something. But how much megawatts?
I think really, if we mean, let's say, at existing absorptive capacity today, that means those industries are connected to the grid and homes, for them to have 24/7 power. Well, maybe by conservative estimation, if we get up to 20-something thousand megawatts, those existing on the network, for example, don't forget that the Dangotes are off-grid. And
He's generating his power.
Yeah, so if they come to the grid, they're going to take off everything.
Everything, yeah.
So at the existing connections, the estimate is about, conservative was 14,000, well, it's not true, it's about 20-something thousand megawatts. But as we saw when we hit 4,500 and there are no local problems, people will see significant relief. If you get to 6,000, which we have got to, but deliver 6,000 real, many Nigerians will feel as if they are in a new country. But what happens sooner then is that new appliances come online, people expand their consumption, and then that sends signal to the market for expansion of production. So the normal law of economics, more demand will throw up impetus, stimulus for more production.
I must talk about the issue of funding, because I know that the power sector is capital intensive. You know, since 1999 that we've seen a revived attention from the Obasanjo government. I do know, coming from the Ministry of Power, just some weeks ago, God knows Igali, the permanent secretary of Power Ministry, did say about 2.7 trillion naira has been spent so far, but we've actually not really seen the impact. Though I also listened to Honorable Ndudu Elumelu come out perhaps a day or two later to say, oh, you know, we probed the sector then, it's even more than that, but, you know. But we do know that funding of it's very capital intensive. For example, like a gas turbine could go for as much as 40 billion naira. You know, so what actually are the... No, are we creating an enabling environment for investors? I'm not going to foreign yet, because I'll come to foreign in a bit. For the local investors, who are primarily perhaps local banks in Nigeria. The central bank too has also come in to provide some kind of guarantee or some kind of incentives for the banks to borrow the discos and co. What actually is the problem?
Well, you know, that's a very good question, because when we were ready to privatize, we had hope that foreign investors would come and, you know, bail us out, basically by
foreign investors are smarter.
By buying this, but they were cynical, which is good for us because it gave our people the opportunity to play big now. Now, many people also have the wrong view that, oh, these Nigerians have taken over this asset, they are criminals. I do know a little bit of international finance. I know that it's fungible. It has no name. Anybody could actually sell their stocks, their share everywhere in the world. So the nationality of a capital is very, very is hazy. The environment in Nigeria, the good thing about this market, forget the scarcity of supply and the unreliability that we have, is that we have actually spent time building a regulatory framework that is very attractive. Now, regulation is a strategy, and in every strategy behavior, a choice is a value, it's a choice. We made a choice first to facilitate investment. Sometimes people blame, like, why not cracking the head of these discos? Why not? There's a penalty in law to withdraw license. Why not doing that? The answer is simple. First, the most important thing is a strategy of bringing finance into this sector. So we have to do three things. One, credibility, a credible regulatory framework. And that's why we keep on following the rules. We've built a Rolls-Royce regulatory framework, if you like.
A what? A Rolls-Royce.
People trust it. People trust that NEC says that a periodic, a minor review period, we execute. Now, we might dispute with investors over issues about pricing, why should you remove this, but they have reliability. There's a sense of certainty that this sector is governed by procedures that are openly and transparently administered. So for investor, first thing is that credibility, transparency. Can we see through this process? Are there concaves of darkness where people congregate?
But in as much as the sector, as you're painting, is very attractive, and we're seeing some kind of skepticism and apprehension around, oh, this was not what we expected. At the end of the day, after the whole stories or things were painted the way they were not painted. Is that enabling environment still being created? That's one. Yes. Is NEC also doing so much in terms of regulation, or is NEC being political, so to speak?
Good question. I think that's we are doing a lot of regulation. Just for example, just yesterday we passed the feed-in tariff, which is a game changer. What that does for renewable is that it gives the promoter of renewable energy a guarantee of pricing, which is critical here. You see, look at why NEC is what standard. One, rules are clear.
Why are you world standard? Are you giving yourself the pass mark?
Yes, I have to check. There's a standard checklist of what a regulator should do. One is rules are clear, announced beforehand. Everybody knows what the rules are. Two, rules are followed strictly according to procedure. We follow the procedure. In this regulation, process is more important than outcome. People want to see the process. Three, credibility of the regulator. This neck under our leadership has not been cited for anything like corruption or anything whatsoever about that. We follow the rules. We have done more public consultation than any regulatory agency anywhere in this country or in Africa. You check it. For this tariff alone, we've done 3 consultations. This course I've managed to do 2. No rules are made here without everybody seeing it. If you go to our website, you see the guideline, the MITO methodology. Every investor has a back of envelope calculator. You can just pick the MITO method and know how much you get. We were the first to sign up to freedom information disclosure in this country. All the 16 mandatory disclosures, we made them in a public ceremony. Nobody has done that. Now that's why the investors are voting with their feet into this country, because they can see the regulator is credible, is open, consultative, and transparent. We are not the best. We're not geniuses. Okay, but we are learning fast. We listen to experts. We do jurisdictional review, look at other jurisdictions. For example, this renewable energy now, we went to South Africa. We saw the South African example. South Africa was the first in Africa boldly to do 20% of renewable auction, but had a problem. The price was high because they didn't follow through a tightened procurement process. We have cured that now in our feed-in tariff. We've created a framework that allows for certainty of price and cost efficiency by putting 5% can go through this track. Beyond 5%, you go through a procurement. We've also shared the loads according to DISCOs so that there will be no technical problem of can you take, people tell us, I want to do 1,000 megawatts of solar. What's the commercial viability? Which the pricing, how do you mix the price with the conventional energy that's lower? No. So you have to factor the commercial framework and also the technical. So what I can tell is that this market, we have built sophisticated. We have, in fact, closed the loop. There's nothing significant in terms of regulation that's missing. That is why for the last 4 or 5 years, what we've done is strategic. Prioritize on regulatory framework, environment. The next 4 years will now be on managerial regulation, looking at problems and fixing them and driving.
Are we seeing an attraction of foreign investors in that sector now?
Absolutely. In fact, not
because
just...
just hold your thought a bit, because I know that some of the factors that the foreign investors are giving is that there should be consistent and cost-reflexive tariffs, number one. There should also be a de-risking of the sector, that is allowing competitive gas prices.
Which we've done.
So to speak. And there should be, what's the third one? Consistent and stable regulation, because foreign investors are smart investors. So they're looking at these 3 factors. Hey, before we come into this market, perhaps these 3 factors need to be put in place.
Okay, now let's look at them one by one. Cost-reflective tariff. That now,
you're working on?
And what makes a tariff cost-reflective? It's simple. Is that there's a procedure for capturing cost discovery. Because we are a transitional market, we're going to be discovering new costs within cities. I'll give you an example. In other developed markets, there's no debate about MDA debts, for example. But here, the operator will come and tell you, regulator, it's true that in other markets, this is not passed to consumer. But in this country, we've tried to get this money back from military, they can't pay. So cost discovery is continuing. That means we are doing these new reviews because you wake up in the morning, there are legacy issues that we discover. Gas, for example.
Okay, I want you to talk quickly because I still have 2 more questions.
Okay, so that's one. 2, you talked about...
And we have 3 minutes.
Yes, secondly, you talked about the other category of stability, the regulatory framework. Yeah. We have stability. Since 2008, we've had the MITO. It has never changed. What we have done is use the MITO to do rebasing. Some people say NEC is changing during tariff. We're not changing the methodology. We are simply using it to capture new realities that the discourse are bringing. 3, we talk about a stable regulator. You talked about, for example, what's the second component of your...
competitive gas prices you've addressed.
Good. Yeah. We are the ones who now said willing buyer, willing seller. We moved the gas price from $1 to $5.50. We moved transport. We now even recognize $4.50, depending on the contract you enter into. We are now at the stage where we say willing buyer, but what we do is what we call prudence check. Let's make sure that those costs are real costs.
Okay.
A regulator's job is to protect public good, and therefore he must second-guess the operators.
I need also for you to address the clear direction of government's policy on transmission, including perhaps will there really be a clear funding plan for transmission that needs to be executed?
Absolutely. You see, the government view, right from the National Electrical Power Policy, is to commercialize all the sectors. Now, transmission, of course, is a public highway. So the issues of ownership, should government totally privatize or concession, will have to be given bigger policy consideration. But what is common, accepted, is that transmission should be able to fund itself. And that only happens if we create revenue cost recovery for transmission. Today we are doing a new tariff review for them, and we're creating processes that make sure that even if you want to build a transmission line, you interconnect, you'll be paid from the transmission use of charges, network dues, fees. So what that means is that you can do various forms of PPPs in the transmission. You can come and build, perhaps own and manage on behalf of the transmission network. You can invest and recover from transmission charges. You can also, perhaps long-term, own a transmission line where there's none. We've also created an independent electricity transmission network regulation. What that means is that in places where there's no transmission network, an independent person can build a transmission network and connect and be the transmission manager. So the framework for the commercial framework is certain. What government will now perhaps make a choice of is the various framework of ownership, whether it's going to privatize, concession, or regionalize. And I'm sure once the Ministry of Power is in,
I'll need you to answer the issue about the future of the improvement in the sector moving forward, and as well as customers' confidence in the sector, because wherever you go, you take a power. It seems that Nigerians do not really have so much confidence in that sector. Very quickly, in a minute.
Quickly, I think the customer confidence is boosted by what NEC activities have done. One, once we have asked the discos, you can't come to us without coming to your customers. That means customer engagement creates a platform for customers to own this process. Two, that's what they call the Nigerian Electricity Consumer Network, Advocacy Network, which I masterminded. The idea is, look, let's cure this asymmetry of information. Let's cure this problem of power, asymmetry of power. So let consumers be organized so that they can place demand on us. I've always said that a customer pushback is good for a regulator. Then the other question you asked about the future, the prospect for further improvement. That prospect looks very, very good for two reasons. We have seen that our generators are improving, ramping up capacity. Gas is coming more. What we need to do is to micromanage the transmission, to make sure there's no possibility of transmission service failure. And then the discos, both through enhancing the revenue for them so that they do investment and monitoring investment in the network. So going forward, NEC will be monitoring every quarter how much they are spending, where are the constraints, are they investing in those costs. So once we can keep our eye on removing constraints and enable the discos to take more power and keep improving gas supply and helping generators get revenue to ramp up their capacity, power supply is bound to take a geometric increase. Okay,
let me just take a minute to read the tweets. Henry Emeka is saying metering is better, paying monthly. While David Okeji on Twitter is saying, can the weak capacity of the national grid be solved through regional, state, and LGAs? I think that was being considered at the time. You spoke about it. Promise is saying the fear of Buhari is the beginning of steady light. Michael Buckner is saying, okay, why do we pay services at charge of about 23 naira daily? I don't know if you have time to answer that. Charles Adeyemi is saying prepaid meter is a disservice to Nigerians. You can even use it with your appliances. You run to debt. Okay, I think some of the questions here. Please tell Mr. Amadi that discos should give prepaid meters in Akute, Ogun State. Those are the tweets I have time for.
I think the one about fixed charge can easily be disposed of. Like we said, legality of fixed charge is not in doubt. What we are doing now is structuring it in a way that is proportionate to consumption. All over the world, you pay it as fixed charge or service charge or consumption charge. But here, we have factored the concern of the consumers, and the discos are presently restructuring. ECO has decided to take it off I think that good example will lead to, very soon, the discussion will not be about fixed charge. It will be about, we have so much power and
What
our
do we
bills
do
are,
with it?
they will be about my bills
These
are too
much.
Yeah.
Okay. Many thanks for joining me on the show today. I hope we were able to cover some areas, isn't it?
You did great.
Thank you. All right, that's the much we can take. I've been speaking with the chairman of the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, NERC, Dr. Sam Amadi. We've been looking at the electricity market in Nigeria. I hope we did justice to some of the questions that are, of course, on top of your minds. But trust us, we'll continue to keep you up to speed with all that. Thank you for joining us again today. Tomorrow we won't be on air because I think the Senate plenary starts again, but we will be on Friday. So be the best you can be the change you want to see. I am Nancy, God bless Nigeria. Have a good day, everyone. Bye now.